The problem, though, is not that we don't have a balanced budget amendment. The Constitution really is sufficient. See, the real problem can be addressed if we just aren't on fiat currency, as Ron Paul's pointed out. If we go back to the constitutional money that is backed by gold and silver, we don't have that problem. But if you're going to just print paper money with nothing behind it, you're going to always be able to have a deficit. You know, the reason they put and defined what constitutional money was in the Constitution was because they had just had an experience with paper money. During the Revolutionary War, the Continental Congress printed paper money, and that's where the expression "not worth the Continental" came from. So in all these areas, if we would just return to the Constitution, if we would get out of office people who are criminals, people who violate their oaths, that's the problem. And we cannot trust these people to rewrite the Constitution and perhaps make it stronger or perhaps eviscerate it. Who knows what they would do? I think it's a very, very dangerous problem. The Constitutional Convention, I don't think, is going to solve anything. Having people of integrity and having the guts to get people out of office, that's what's needed. Now, we were talking just before the break about some people who are trying to get into office. Hillary Clinton, of course, and she's added a new qualification to her resume, the fact that she completely lost, either through corruption or through incompetence, $6 billion with a B at the State Department. We also see the Republicans trying to pony up for money in Las Vegas. And this is an article that was linked on the Drudge Report, Vegas or Bust for Republicans. Says Las Vegas has a big advantage over the other 5 cities, hoping to host the Republican National Convention in 2013, and the advantage is Sheldon Adelson. He is adamant that the GOP must go to Vegas, said one source, and some GOPers fear that if Adelson doesn't get his way, he'll just give a couple $100 million to the Democrats just for spite. He'll take his football and he'll go home. You know, he just had this little 4-day bash for some Republicans, the Republican Jewish Coalition Conference. He had Jeb Bush and Chris Christie and 2 other governors came there and basically kissed Sheldon Adelson's ring. We'll put it that way. So the question, I guess, would be, if they're going to have the GOP convention there, are they going to have a separate Jewish convention like they tried to do with the caucus in 2012? Remember, they had a Jewish-only caucus on a Sunday, and they tried to throw out Ron Paul supporters. A lot of really corrupt stuff going on there. And, of course, Sheldon Adelson can give $100 million to the Republicans and still come out way ahead. It's still a very good investment for him, a very good return on his investment, because they are trying, along with Democrats like Harry Reid, they're trying to stop online gambling, which is his competition. And that has always been the case. Look at this story from The Atlantic, which just came out a couple of days ago. Mega donors are now more important than most politicians. This is an article by Peter Beinert, and he says, quick, name a senator who served between the Civil War and World War I. Oh, can't? Okay. Now name a tycoon who bought senators during that same period. Oh, J.P. Morgan, John D. Rockefeller, you know, you can come up with a lot more, can't you? He says it's very easy to do that. And he gives an example. William McKinley raised $16 million when he ran, but his opponent, Democrat William Jennings Bryant, only had $600,000. So he basically had 32 times the amount of money that his opponent did. And his campaign manager, McKinley's campaign manager, bragged about it. He said, all questions in a democracy are questions of money. Is that the way that it should be? You know, this is an article in The Atlantic, and they're decrying the Supreme Court decisions on Citizens United 1 and 2. But if you're going to shut down people's free speech, that's not the way to do it, any more than trying to get money out of the system. Just as we see that it's often misquoted, that the love of that money is the root of all evil. It's not money that's the root of all evil. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. And when we look at politics, it isn't people's free speech that's involved that's the problem. It's the amount of power that is in Washington and the favors that they can deal out and how they can, unconstitutionally, I believe, shut down some businesses and favor others. That's why, unless we get serious with the Constitution, unless we get serious about holding people within the limits of the law, unless we get serious about transparency, there's no way that you're going to be able to shut down people's free speech and participation in this. They will just go underground. And the cases that we saw in the Supreme Court cases of Citizens United 1 and 2, these are cases where small organizations were being stepped on. The big guys are already getting what they wanted. The Sheldon Adelsons are already getting what they wanted, and they're going to get what they want. It's just whether or not the smaller people are going to be able to band together and have a say-so, to be able to participate, to collectively pool their resources and put out their position. The big guys are going to be able to do that. They're going to go underground. They're going to do that any way they want. As I mentioned earlier, a good example of this is the laws against craft breweries that are being crafted in Florida. We're also seeing laws against Tesla. They're trying to stop Tesla from selling their cars in New Jersey because they're not using Automobile Association dealers. So the people who are distributors in Florida are trying to stop the sale of beer in Florida unless it goes to distributors. They're always going to government to try to shut down their competition or to try to give themselves special favors. And that's what you see with Sheldon Adelson. He's trying to shut down his competition. One last thing here on politics, and then I want to go to the police state news that we've got here. Romney's return to public life stokes speculation about a potential run in 2016. I don't think he's going to run again. He's been pretty adamant about it. He's, he's already lost once. That's very unusual for somebody to run again after they've lost. It has been done, but it's very unusual. But here's the interesting thing I thought about this article that was on Drudge Report. It says he's appeared on TV news shows 12 times in the past 6 months, essentially on pace with Michigan's Mike Rogers, who led all national politicians last year with 26 appearances. That's interesting because, Mike Rogers, after becoming the poster child for the surveillance state, is now not going to run again in what was considered by many to be a safe Republican district, although it's gone both ways in the last two presidential elections. One of them it went slightly for the Democrats, another one it went slightly for Republicans. And as bad as it has been with all the revelations about the NSA spying and his absurd defenses of it, his absurd cheerleading of the NSA's dragnet surveillance programs, I think they're worried that he couldn't get reelected. And so I don't know, is Mitt Romney auditioning for a place on talk radio like Mike Rogers? I don't think so. I think Romney already owns Clear Channel, so I don't think he really needs to worry about that. Now, Darren McBreen contacted me about a video that he saw that was put out in 2007, and they were talking about what life was going to be like in 2017. If you remember, the globalists are always talking about 2020 as a time when they're going to get everything put together for this surveillance state, for the police state, for even the beginning of transhumanism. Look at this. Yeah, we're going to have to do this in the next segment, but I want you to see when we play this exactly what they're talking about in 2007. Look at how much of this has come true. Think about the implications of Obamacare and of biometric data. And we're going to talk about the company that does the biometric scanning on this. Basically, what they're saying is that they're going to look at everything that we do, follow everything we do. And, of course, we've seen this happening. People don't understand how important metadata is.
The facts are in. The studies are legion. Sodium fluoride and other toxic members of the fluoride family are devastating the health and cognitive ability of the American people. So why are the social engineers adding it to the water? Simple. Dumb down the host population that the parasitic technocracy is feeding on. We may not have been able to get fluoride out of the water supply yet, but we can help to get it out of our bodies. I am extremely excited to announce the exclusive InfoWars Life Fluoride Shield formulation, fusing 6 of the best documented ingredients from around the world to help the body remove not just toxic fluoride residues from the body, but a whole host of toxic substances. Let's take a stand against the globalists by blocking their poisons with Fluoride Shield. I use Fluoride Shield every day. Secure your Fluoride Shield and other pioneering formulations at InfoWarsLife.com today. Let's start cleansing our bodies now and support the InfoWar at the same time. That's InfoWarsLife.com.
Let's go to Chris in Kentucky, because we talked about concealed carry in Chicago earlier, and he had a comment about that. Chris, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Dave. I lived in Chicago for many years, up there since the 70s into the late 80s, and you're absolutely right. The more guns you take away, the more crime you have. It got worse in the 1980s when the gangs had just taken many districts of the cities and wondered why we need more police, we need more people to take more guns away from law-abiding citizens. And guess what? It's been disastrous since. It's just as in New York City, another place. And it's getting to a point. I hope people wake up and realize the more guns you have in a city or a town, the less crime you have. You've documented that. It's absolutely right.
That's right.
A couple of weekends ago in Louisville, Kentucky, we had a bunch of teens that went on a rampage. A lot of people got injured. A lot of people were hospitalized. Well, how many of those people that had a concealed carry, if they would not have been robbed or their children hurt, you would have stopped that right instantly. The police cannot be there everywhere at once. They always rely on us. If you have your cell phone, the government's going to be there or the police are going to be there to save you. No, that's not the case. You're going to have to defend yourself. It takes a split second before you can be killed in a crime, Dave. You're absolutely right. It's time we've got to get all 50 states to concealed carry. This is our republic. We've got to take it back.
Very, very true. You know, I've spoken many times to Jim Gierach. He's with Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And he pointed out he was a prosecutor in Chicago, in Cook County. And he said 80% of the shootings there are related to the war on drugs. They're gang-related. It's not because you've got too many guns in there. Basically, they were essentially prohibiting guns from being in there, but they were still coming in a massive amount. People were still shooting each other because criminals are still going to have those guns. It is a deterrent. It's something that people like the police chief in Detroit understand that, and hopefully we can get more people to understand it. It's a information war, I think, to get people to understand it. Thank you so much, Chris in Kentucky. Let's go to Mitchell in Louisiana. You wanted to say something about medications.
Hey, David. Yeah, I wanted to say that I'm the second of 3 generations in my family that have been victims of the CPS in the United States. And when I was taken from my family, thankfully we were able to get my son out of the country before they actually got their clammy hands on him. But when I was in the system, I was in a bunch of different foster homes and an adoptive home. And when I hit adolescence, as is far too normal enough in that scene, when I hit adolescence, they dropped me like a wet rag, and I went into boys' homes and federal facilities for youths. And in my youth, in my teen years in these facilities, I witnessed just crimes against humanity is really the only way I can word it. And what they were experimenting on these children and me with these psychotropic medications. And over the years, I've just seen so many children just begging to die, just suffering. A lot of them weren't even crazy. A lot of them did not have significant problems of any kind. A lot of them were very somewhat intelligent children, just struggling because of their family situation, because the government had taken them from their homes and they were being put on all these hardcore psychotropic medications. Doctors from D.C. would fly in once a month and switch up the medications. They were constantly putting us on multiples, different kinds of medications all at the same time, taking us off, putting us on new ones. These kids were just seizing up, these totally would-be healthy children seizing up constantly, creating all kinds of problems in their life. And it was the biggest insult to me was after those years when I got out and I went on with my life. The biggest insult to me was the ignorance of the American people on average. And when I try to talk to my fellow countrymen about the crimes against humanity that I had to live through in my youth,
Now, just before we left in the last hour, we were talking about this piece that Darren McBreen gave me about NBC News, talking about where they saw society in 10 years, in 2017. They did this back in 2007. And we all thought that this would be pretty interesting for you to see what they were telling us the world was going to be like and how much of this has come true. Yeah, how are they doing about safeguarding our privacy in this brave new world? Not very good, are they? I thought it was interesting that in 2017, this is before, of course, Obama was elected, they were already pushing the connection between biometrics and medical care. That was the very first thing you heard in that piece. Started out with an ambulance sound, the year is 2017, 10 years in the future. You don't have any ID. They don't know who you are, but hey, they've got this great microchip under your skin that tells them everything. Presumably how they can bill you, right? And who you are, because that's really what they want to know. What about your vaccination records? Are you current on that? Because then they can load you up with all the vaccines. But the real point of this is that this is not about helping people. This is about total information awareness, total control, a total surveillance grid. That's everything that they put out there. And of course, they roll that out to start getting people used to it. It's predictive programming. We already see most of that stuff there. As a matter of fact, it's already much, much worse than what they said, and we're not even to 2017 yet. I thought it was interesting that the guy they had on there, his name was Clark Nelson, and he's with a company that is now turned into Morpho. It was Sagem Morpho Biometrics at the time was how they had the lower thirds on there. That is a French company. It's a biometrics company. It's the largest biometrics company in the world now. And what he said is, the key question is, am I who I say I am? And see, that's where the piece took a turn. They always like to say that this Orwellian technology, this brave new world technology, is about helping you. All these robots that you see DARPA building, those are just going to help you in the case of an earthquake or a Fukushima event. No, they're there to hunt you down, okay? And this is why they're developing these biometrics. Am I who I say I am? Let's take a look at some of the stuff that this guy's company has done. They're number one in the world in biometrics. They've got 8,000 people, 40 countries, 85 subsidiaries, 1.5 billion euros in revenue. They've got things like finger-on-the-fly technology. It reads your fingerprints on a moving hand. You don't even have to hold your hand still. They can read it on the fly. They've got fast DNA matching tools. They're also specialists in border control. See, they've already started out, and you noticed in that they said it's going to move from the airlines. They were not doing fingerprints and iris scans at the airports in 2007, but they were priming everything to roll out from there with the TSA. But this is what Morpho also supplies. And again, this is just one of the many biometric companies. They happen to be the largest in the world. They have what they call secure biometric access control at borders, fully automated e-gates. And you can see that picture there. It's like a subway turnstile if you're looking at it. It's like a subway turnstile. You go in there, it looks at your biometric data, compares it with your travel documents, compares it with your history, and they call it the Morpho way. Isn't that nice? They also have multimodal fingerprints where they look at your veins and other biometrics, as well as facial ID. And of course, these people also bring us the wonderful things like red light cameras and speed limit enforcement. And they acquired 81% of GE Homeland Protection in 2009. See, that's where we're headed. This is all about what the state wants. This isn't what people want. You had one quote in there from a guy at the University of Bath. He said, I think it's possible for us to free ourselves completely of our wallets and keys using biometric technology if that's what people want in 10 years' time. No, the people don't want that. The corporations want that. The governments that help the corporations, that feed the corporations, want that as well. The government has its own little agenda there, but it's also part of it is feeding this giant surveillance state. That's where we're headed. It's not about your safety. It's not about safeguarding anything. If you haven't seen the new Captain America movie, you really need to see this. This guy took on the police state, the issues of our time, head on. Now, this is a story that was linked on Drudge Report from Mother Jones. It says, Captain America, the Winter Soldier is about Obama's terror suspect kill list, says the film's directors. I'm not going to give you anything away, no spoilers here. But if you've seen the trailers, if you know anything about it, you know the general gist of it. And it was a deliberate thing, according to the directors. They said they wanted to make a political thriller. So we told them, well, if you want to make a political thriller, all the great political thrillers have current issues in them that reflect the anxieties of the audience. That gives it an immediacy. It also makes it relevant. And this is a very relevant movie, Captain America. So Anthony and I just looked at the issues that were causing anxiety for us because we read a lot and we're politically inclined. And a lot of that stuff had to do with civil liberties issues. Sure does. Drone strikes, the president's kill list, preemptive technology, all the themes that were worked into the film, working closely with screenwriters Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. It's a great film. It's not only great and fun entertainment, super special effects as you would expect, but it does exactly what they said. It takes the current issues, puts them in the context of a political thriller. Back in 2007, Facebook only had about 58 million views each month. It is now over 1.25 billion each month. And that massive database has got a lot of facial pictures. So they've already got that database right there, as well as the information that Google is tracking on us. But we had a caller call in at the break from Wisconsin talking about biometrics and cattle. We wanted to go to him, and Dennis in Oregon and Chris in Indiana. We're going to get to you right after this, so stay tuned. But Ben in Wisconsin, tell us about how they're using biometrics for four-legged cattle.
Yes, David, sir, you've been working really hard this past week. I'm really grateful to be talking to you. I just had one of those epiphanies last night and got on with YouTube and was watching how these automatic cow systems work with 400 cattle. I mean, I used to milk 30 cattle when I was a kid, but can you imagine milking 400 and how they do it all with robotic work, and the robots identify the cow and process that information to show just exactly what the cow's milk quality is and everything with that cow, what feed it needs and everything like that. It's just amazing, and it's biometric scans.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't have a problem when they do it to cattle. I have a problem when they treat us as cattle, and that's really what they're doing. I think they see us as their inventory. They see us as their cattle, and that's what they're doing this all for. They want to know everything, every little detail about us. It's obsessive. It's because they think they own us, isn't it?
Well, they own those cows, and they're trying to get the most out of them, and that is you can see how that all that data they collected from that system to control the cows has turned to us. They just want to control us too, Dave.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. We are their cattle. Well, thank you, Ben.
You are watching the best of the Alex Jones Show, weekdays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. Watch live at Infowars.com/show or become a member of InfoWarsNews.com and help us take resistance to the next level.